Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Michael Phillips with us. Michael, they're just, we keep saying maybe we'll do this again next week, and there just keeps on being stuff happening. Although I think on the heels of free agency, this was a predictable Michael Phillips appearance for Not My Beat on a Monday.
Yeah, I mean, you could see this one coming from a mile away. I think the market is slowing down. Maybe I'll jinx it into happening. I feel like this will be a significantly slower week, though.
Yeah, I definitely think that, maybe there's a significant move because the Commanders do have like one fairly significant hole at left tackle that could happen some point over the next week. Obviously, the other significant hole at quarterback, but that's going to be a draft issue. But it does feel like, they signed 28,000 players, Michael. They got to be out of roster spots soon,
Feel free to disagree with me. I don't think there's a name at left tackle, though, who would warrant some kind of like special edition treatment unless it's a full-on like trade for a real left tackle kind of situation.
No, I think there are some names that would be interesting. Bakhtiari is a former Pro Bowler who is floating out there. There's a couple others, and now I'm completely blanking on all the available names. DJ Humphries from Arizona is like an interesting one, but I don't think like here's my barometer these days, and you'll appreciate this because you've been a part of one of these. I don't think there's anybody they sign at left tackle that's available right now that causes me to do an emergency live YouTube stream.
Exactly. I'm going to tap the sign. If a left tackle is available, I have questions. Teams with good left tackles do not let those players leave the building under any circumstances outside of misdiagnosing tumors on their head. That's the only circumstance in which they let good left tackles out of the building. If anybody's available right now, there's a reason.
Yes, no, that is 100% fair. Of course, Michael Phillips, host of MP on the Mic, 10 a.m. to noon weekdays on 910 The Fan in Richmond, which you can listen to on 910 The Fan, also 105.1 FM and the free Odyssey app nationwide, which includes wherever you are listening right now. So, Michael, the big story, though, coming out of the weekend happened going into it, the Sam Howell trade. I will open-ended leave this to you. What did you make of the deal? And I will, I guess, limit the scope, at least to start from the Commander's perspective. From a Commander's eye, what did you make of the deal?
Yeah, I think that if it were me running the team, I probably would have kept him as a QB3, right? It feels like a low risk, like, it's not that they gained nothing, and I know we'll talk about it. They gained more than the Bears did, which is kind of stunning. It's a low return trade just in terms of the raw numbers on what you get, and we can also go into how you score keep on that. I'm going to score it as a fourth-round pick. Everybody's welcome to yell at me for that if they'd like. But, fourth-round pick for a guy who's a proven NFL, like, can fill the spot without embarrassing himself, or being Steven Montez and his eyes going big in the moment. Like, I don't know, that feels like about right. Like you would try to chase one of those guys. From the perspective of Adam Peters and from the context of the moves they've made, they're cleaning house. This is a full-on house cleaning. And when you do a full-on house cleaning, when you go 4-13, you're not allowed to be surprised when anybody leaves. Truly, only guy who I would say that surprises me is Terry, and that surprises me, not for any reasons that have to do with this administration, of course. That's the only guy on this team in any context who I would be surprised if they don't go. When you're 4-13 and the new guy wants to turn the roster over, it's really, really hard for me to work up any sort of hot take about why you shouldn't do that.
Michael, I cannot believe you just disrespected Tressway like that.
I don't do it anymore. Everybody, when you go on, when you do the radio circuit and when people ask you questions, stuff there, I say, who's a surprise cut? Who would you be surprised? Who could surprise us? And the first time I did that this offseason, I actually said Tress. I said, hey, look, like, he's a punter, and they may just want to bring in their own guy at punter. Like, nothing against Tress. And like, people revolted. Like, it was full on pitchforks and torches outside my house level of revolt. I don't say that anymore, but I'll say quietly here on the Team 980, if they move on, I kind of would be surprised. I'd be mad. I would mistress immensely, but I wouldn't be surprised.
No, they should not. That would be very silly. You do not need to move on one of the best punters in the NFL and the quiz master and glue of the locker room. Michael Phillips with us here on the Hoffman Show. So I think the cleaning house thing is a somewhat underplayed element of this, because I agree with you. I feel like with the moves they've made, that there is an intense intent to eliminate potential distraction. What is the value of that? Whereas you were saying, like, I don't care as much about that, and I would prefer to have just kept him as QB3.
Because you need three quarterbacks in this scenario. The scenario where they draft a quarterback at number 2, you got a rookie coming in. There's no guarantees he's going to give you 17 games. There's no guarantees he's going to be, injury, health, all those things. Mariota, no guarantees there either in terms of production. I think not just speaking about Washington now, just making an NFL statement. If I was a coach of an NFL team, I would want 3 legitimate option quarterbacks on my roster at all times. It's a 17-game season. Defensive ends are better than they've ever been, basically at any point in the modern history of the league. Things are happening in the NFL that are trending towards multiple quarterbacks playing for each team in a season. So that's my rationale for keeping him. It's not, and I do want to make very clear, I don't think he's a top 20 NFL quarterback, and I don't think he will be a top 20 NFL quarterback. I think he's a good backup, and I think he's worth keeping around, and I think he's a good dude. But I don't and have never agreed with trade the number 2 pick because you've got Sam Howell and can continue to develop him. I think I've seen enough on that front.
So that leads to the number 2 pick. And if we want to touch third rails here, the most violent that the fan base is getting right now, again, by the YouTube comments metric, which is what it is, Twitter, similar type of thing. But the idea of trading out of 2 becomes far more interesting when all of a sudden the Minnesota Vikings appear to be putting together a Viking-sized war chest of assets. And the rumors are they are very interested in Drake Maye. What would it take you at this point to be peeled off of that second overall pick with where Washington is if Minnesota comes calling?
Man, it would take a lot, and it would take more than I think they've got. Is it 11 and 23? Is that what they're sitting on right now?
Yes.
If you offered me 11, 23, and next year's 1, that's not enough for me. I'm not there yet, right? This is an opportunity to take a potential franchise quarterback. And if Adam Peters does his job, if Dan Quinn does his job, they will not get to pick number 2 ever again in their tenures, right? If we come to a spot 3-4 years down the road where these guys are picking number 2 overall, somebody else is going to be turning in that card, right? And it's not that you can't win without a quarterback. We've seen examples of it, but the exceptions prove the rule. This is the shortcut to the process. If you find the guy right here and take him, that shortcuts the entire process. I am a huge advocate for turning in the card. If they don't turn in the card, what I want is first rounders going forward for a long time. I don't even necessarily want first this year. I want first going forward, and I want that because that's Josh Harris communicating we're running the process here, right? Or we're running a version of the process. That's what could make me say, okay, maybe this is worth investigating.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on, like, again, we talked about this at length on Take Command that we recorded earlier today that will be out first thing in the morning for folks to listen to, but it also just depends on what you think of these prospects, because if you really don't think there's that much difference between McCarthy and Daniels and Maye, then it hurts less to trade back than trade up to 5 or whatever it is that you want to do, kind of keep an eye on things and be ready to go at any pick, because you would then have your own war chest of picks to move back up in the draft, and getting extra capital is huge. And I think the other part of it, and this is kind of why I feel good no matter what they do and have throughout this process, even though I don't necessarily, even the more I watch, love any of these guys, like it's pretty clear to see the warts. Quarterbacks succeed because they go to good spots. And I think this is a good organization. And that's the thing I take out of this free agency period, Michael, is like they seem to know what they're doing. And that's a cool change from the past.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Craig. To me, part of the fun of the draft is, I guess I'd call it the espionage portion. Not that they're like actually hacking other people's computers.
Sure.
But also, if you know who the Patriots want, can you get, and you don't want that guy, can you get them from 3 to 2 by spooking them into thinking you're going to take that guy, right? Can you walk away with a little bit extra? What you mentioned, right? Can you figure out if you get to 4, you could still get the guy you want and then get a little something along the way? I would just add that is a dangerous, dangerous game to play. But if you execute the high wire act, it does turn out pretty well for you.
No doubt. And again, you have to be okay in that strategy of missing out on all those guys. And
Yes, you do.
I don't know that that's going to be the case because they certainly have a quarterback need there for QB1. Last thing I'll hit with you real quick. And again, if you want more from Michael, including kind of how Cam Curl read the market, anything, you should check out his show from this morning on demand, MP on the mic. Just search it in the free Odyssey app for the podcast. But like if Marcus Mariota is the week 1 starter for this team because they take someone who's not ready, like, are you cool with that? If you're like, hey, this is the long-term plan, or are you in the camp that they need to take someone, go forward, and if Marcus Mariota is starting week 1, then they've made some kind of mistake?
I want Marcus Mariota or somebody else to start week 1. I don't want whoever they take at number 2 to start week 1. This isn't Houston. This isn't a let's go and let's rally situation. There's a lot of evidence that suggests that quarterbacks who rest and learn at the start of their NFL careers do better. Now, the counterpoint on that is those quarterbacks end up in good organizations, which helps them long term. Double counterpoint, Craig. This team wants to be a good organization. I think it would be a savvy play. I think the ticket office would moan and groan about it for a long time. And I think if you're doing things that annoy the ticket office, that's awesome. That's a sign that the right people are in charge and the right decisions are being made. I'm planting my flag on this hill. There's very few quarterback takes I've been this hot on in this cycle. Whoever I take at number 2, he doesn't start week 1 for me, period.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Unless all of a sudden they just show some kind of tremendous growth. Like, I can't remember ever thinking like, man, I really care about a pro day in the way I care about Drake Maye's pro day. All of a sudden I'm like, I need to see what kind of growth you've had the last 3 months since you stopped playing football and started focusing on becoming a pro quarterback. Because if you've taken this seriously and you've shown massive growth already, then we can dance. If not, Minnesota, what do you want again? Like, let's get on the phone. Michael Phillips.
It's a lot of intangibles too. You remember the story out of Seattle, right? Draft Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. He gets in and like Pete Carroll's just like, crap, I got to make this guy my starter. Yeah. I don't have a choice here. You'd like for it to be that easy.
100%. I would take Russell Wilson 2.0. Dude's going to the Hall of Fame. I don't know that I'd take Russell Wilson 1.0, but that's Pittsburgh's problem. Michael Phillips is with us Mondays here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. He's, of course, every day on 910 The Fan down in Richmond, which you can listen to live on the free Odyssey app. Michael, have a great week, sir. And pending news, we'll talk to you next week.
I'll look forward to it.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.